The US has placed a target on South Africa's back after a certain company used American equipment in order to train US rivals. Here's what happened. So a certain South African company thought it wise to supply the Chinese with military training equipment, and equipment that was actually US made and distributed. This has actually gotten negative attention from not only the FBI, but also the US Department of Justice, with both vowing to take action. But before we get into it, could I please remind you to subscribe to the channel? It's completely free, and all you have to do is click on the subscribe button below the video. Furthermore, if you would like to enjoy some additional perks, you can become a Power Club member by clicking the join button below. Now let's get into it. So the update I'm speaking about came via a press release from the US Office of Public Affairs, which falls under the US Department of Justice. It explains here that United States files forfeiture action against 2 anti-submarine warfare crew trainers en route from South Africa to the Chinese military. So the Justice Department filed the forfeiture complaint against 2 mission crew trainers who were interdicted in transit from the Test Flying Academy of South Africa to the People's Republic of China's People's Liberation Army. The MCTs are mobile classrooms intended to assist the PLA to train personnel on the use of airborne warning and control system and anti-submarine warfare aircraft. TFASA masquerades as a civilian flight training academy when in actual fact it's a significant enabler of the Chinese air and naval forces and a pipeline for transferring NATO aviation expertise, operational knowledge and restricted technology directly to the People's Liberation Army, said Assistant Attorney General for National Security John A. Eisenberg. And so right here we see that although they do seem to speak more about China than South Africa as a country, this certainly targets the TFASA, which is, of course, a South African company, implicating South Africa as well by extension. The National Security Division will continue to act decisively to preserve the U.S. military's qualitative edge by preventing U.S. technology from falling into the hands of our adversaries. The seizure demonstrates the ongoing threat that China and its enablers pose to the national security of the United States through the unlawful procurement of U.S. military technology, said U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro for the District of Columbia. The Department of Justice and our law enforcement partners continue to be steadfast in our commitment to every lawful tool available to keep this critical technology out of the hands of our adversaries. The Test Flying Academy of South Africa illegally exported U.S. military flight simulator technology and recruited former NATO pilots for the purpose of training China's military, jeopardizing U.S. national security and placing the lives of American service members at risk, said Assistant Director Roman Rozovsky of the FBI's Counterintelligence and Espionage Division. The U.S. government will pursue every avenue available to defend the homeland, protect our war fighters, and hold accountable anyone who aids our adversaries. So this is quite a lengthy press release, and I will include a link in the description box below so that you can check it out for yourself. But to summarize, although the US mostly speaks about this benefiting China and they don't really mention South Africa as a country in the specific release, it is very clear that they are targeting the TFASA, and this implicates South Africa, of course, by extension. And it doesn't help that just a few days ago, South Africa hosted a joint Navy drill off the coast of Cape Town with China as well as Russia and other countries. And so this has certainly caught the US attention. If we scroll further down, we see that it explains that this interdiction is the latest instance implicating TFASA in its role as a primary trainer of the PLA. In June 2023, the Department of Commerce added TFASA and numerous of its subsidiaries and affiliates in South Africa and elsewhere to the entity list for providing training to Chinese military pilots using Western and NATO sources, which the Department of Commerce noted was contrary to US national security and foreign policy interests. Now, South Africa did do a little bit of backtracking from what was quite an extreme stance during that joint naval exercise with BRICS. However, the US is still probably not going to see South Africa as having done enough to quell the disaster, as we'll see in the following article. So this piece from DefenseWeb explains exactly what happened during the BRICS maritime exercise, which concluded just a few days ago. So what's really interesting to note is that after pressure was mounted on South Africa due to what's going on in Iran with the protests, they did decide to distance themselves from Iran. However, this probably isn't going to be enough to appease the Americans, and we're going to see why. So interestingly, it explains here that the exercise ran from 9 to 16 January and brought together BRICS plus navies for a program of more than 20 naval and aerial joint maritime safety operations, interoperability drills, and maritime protection serials under the theme Joint Actions to ensure the safety of shipping and maritime economic activities. Serials included a live fire exercise using semi-heavy weapons in the southern portion of False Bay. And so, of course, this is going to set off alarm bells for the US, because you see there's over 20 different exercises, including the firing of live ammunition. And of course, even though they claim that, oh, this is for maritime defense, this is certainly an aggressive action. It shows that they're getting ready for military responses to whatever threats they may perceive to be out there. And this will certainly frustrate the United States, knowing that South Africa continues to build this alliance. Now, going further down, it explains how the exercise was not without controversy. Iran's participation drew sharp criticism after its warships took part, despite President Cyril Ramaphosa having requested that Tehran scale back its involvement. Opposition parties and analysts argue that the decision weakened South Africa's claims of strategic neutrality and could strain relations with Western partners, whereas officials insisted the exercise was purely professional in nature, aimed at enhancing maritime security cooperation rather than signaling any shift in foreign policy. According to Iran's press TV channel, during a meeting on Friday with Captain Emad Nejad Moridi, head of Iran's Naval Task Force 103 and top commander of Iranian forces in the exercise, Lebezi said the two countries had agreed to promote maritime ties. He's obviously speaking about South Africa and Iran. He added that Iran's Navy dispatched 3 combat warships to the exercise, which showed the improvement of defense ties and friendship between the two countries. Furthermore, the Iranian channel noted that the South African Vice Admiral expressed his country's full readiness to support the Iranian flotillas, as both navies shoulder a responsibility to promote peace and friendship. Amid mounting negative publicity over Iran's involvement, the SANDF quietly deleted a Facebook update confirming Iran's participation in the sea phase of the exercise and subsequently ceased engagement with the media. This tightening of information coincided with the closing parade on Friday morning, being closed to press coverage, although sailors from South Africa, China, Iran, Russia, and the UAE were visibly represented. And so what this shows us is that, yes, South Africa did attempt to suppress the Iranian coverage somewhat, although it's still very much clear that there is this alignment with Iran. And of course, China is at the forefront of this entire event, along with the likes of Russia. And this, paired together with the US Department of Justice's findings, shows that the United States is certainly not going to back down from its scrutiny of South Africa, because it just seems as if the South African government, primarily the ANC, will not back down from its anti-American rhetoric. Thank you very much for joining me for this video. If you found it informative, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.